very much, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me to join the committee today. It's an area of much interest for me. I want to thank you, first of all, Minister, I think, for speaking so eloquently around the issue of history. I won't ask you to repeat that again, but I think you really displayed a very deep understanding, and I think, as you may be aware, myself and my colleagues, Senator Colette Kelleher and a number of others, we've also put forward proposals in respect of traveller history in education. And it's something that NCC are also looking at, I think, in terms of how that becomes part of the curriculum. And as you described it, it is about all those parts of history, reflecting the kind of diversity of experience, both good and bad, that people have had in Ireland, and that has helped to shape our country. So I think I would be hopeful that those outcomes, and perhaps you might give us an expected timeline of when we might expect that review to be completed. In that same space of critical thinking, I just wanted to kind of highlight or bring to your attention, Minister, something that I think is a very good initiative, but very much under-resourced, which is the Young Philosopher Awards and the Young Philosopher of the Years. It's a very small project at the moment. It's certainly not on the scale of the Young Entrepreneur initiatives and others, but I think is very important in terms of that idea of critical thinking, philosophical thinking, which is so important for our young people. It's an initiative coming out of UCD, and I think it had about 50 or 60 schools involved, but I think it's something which could really be of huge benefit, particularly at a time both locally, nationally and internationally, when there can be very polarised debates at times, to be able to think philosophically and engage with each other. I think it's a sign of how important critical thinking is that, unfortunately, apparently, in Brazil at the moment, Paulo Freire is getting pulled out of schools in terms of, and it's because I think people recognise the power when people are critically thinking, and I think we should be looking to reverse that trend in every way we can. In terms of a couple of specific issues, I think well-being was mentioned in different forms. We do need to model as well as to take, and I think, as was said, the issue of insecurity for teachers is an issue in terms of creating an environment that is also, and particularly our school secretaries, because I know that school secretaries, in effect, do almost a social work component to their work. In many cases, it is the school secretaries who really help children, especially children who are maybe dealing with difficult situations in terms of their families' housing security, in terms of maybe being in situations like direct provision, in terms of navigating bureaucracies, which unfortunately our youngest people sometimes have to navigate. I think they've played a key role, and it is very unfortunate that people don't know, in fact even students don't know or children don't know, that the same school secretary will be there in September, because they effectively lose their job every year, go on to social welfare payments, and then have to come back in September. It's not acceptable. And that comes to kind of an area. I sit on the Social Protection Committee more normally. We've had very useful joint committee. I think it might have predated your taking on of this role, but a joint sitting between education and social protection, looking in particular at the issue of disability and the blocks to access. And a general issue I'd love if you could comment on, Minister, is that issue of second chance education. How can we ensure that those who may be navigating the social welfare system and social protection system are being given quality education options as part of their route, that we don't, it's not, sometimes it can feel like a luck of the draw to people in terms of what courses they're offered, in terms of the time of year when they register, whether or not they will get offered a college course as an option or not. I'll be very brief, just to finish up. In that, I have concerns in relation to the National Training Fund. We're going to have statements in the Seanad on it this week, but I am concerned there's been some indication of giving employers more of a say in what training persons might do. The National Training Fund is really there to allow individuals to build maybe their own career, their own capacity, maybe in some cases to start a new career. So I do think it's very important that it remain learner-centred rather than become a kind of an asset of companies. Finally, again, I'm not sure if Minister Mitchell O'Connor will be joining us again, but perhaps I might indicate the issues and maybe we can follow up elsewhere on it. In the area of Goal 4, building stronger bridges between education and the wider community, I'd ask you, Minister, to consider if that goal might be incorporated into future procurement, so that, for example, in the area of books for schools, we look to reflect supporting those situations which are linked to wider learning opportunities. Green schools have already been mentioned in terms of energy, but also green schools in terms of the pollinator plans and wildlife corridors, I think, is an important piece. But my question for Minister Mitchell O'Connor is just around frontier research, basically public research, for the public good with that wider scope. And I missed the previous lot, so my specific questions in relation to Brexit on this are, what measures have been taken to ensure that research projects, which Ireland is a partner in at the moment with UK institutions, that we are doing appropriate transfer of our data, of research materials and so forth, to ensure that they are based within the EU and that we don't have projects jeopardised, and perhaps resources might need to be freed up in order to ensure what will be actually quite a logistical challenge, because data transfer subsequent to a no-deal Brexit, were that to happen, will become extremely difficult. And in that regard, the recognition qualifications, and is there any scope to remove the current employment control framework for universities? Because you will have a wide array of extraordinary talented researchers and academics who may be searching for other English language locations. And at the moment, because of the employment control frameworks, leaving aside funding, many universities are blocked from being able to actually hire them or take advantage of those individuals, in that they're restricted in the numbers that they can recruit. Thank you very much.